When Australia's first organic farm began operating more than 50 years ago, many producers were highly sceptical. But today, the Australian organic food industry is worth more than $500 million a year at the farm gate. As Sean Murphy reports, many organic practices are catching on, with a growing number of conventional farmers now using natural trace elements and biological fertilisers certified for organic use.
He's the godfather of organic farming in Australia, and his farm is proof that broadacre cropping and livestock production can work without synthetic chemicals. Alan Druce is now 86 years old, but he's lost none of his passion for farming.
I'm excited. I'm happy because I think we're onto the knowledge of how to offer a service to our fellow man. That excites me.
Alan Druce runs a typical mixed farm with sheep, cattle and crops at Green Grove near Ardlethan in New South Wales. But what makes him unusual is that he converted his 1,100 hectares to organic principles in 1962.
We don't use poisonous chemicals. They're getting into the food chain, but I think what is more serious, they are killing the soil biology. I think it's incredibly sad. I think that monoculture, using these chemicals big time, is going to turn those farms into desert. But I don't have scientific proof for that, I just think it's happening. And the health of our nation, the people's health, is deteriorating so dramatically that doctors cannot keep up with the increasing workload. And the secret of good health in human beings is to have a good, right, healthy balance of the ecology that's in the soil. It's not just dirt. And the same with the animals. You might have noticed the animals look pretty healthy. Fat, big and strong and things like that. It's because they're getting the right balance of essential nutrients too. And so when we eat lamb or beef, we get a lot of the nutrients from them.
These days, Alan Druce's neighbour, Andrew Taylor, manages Green Grove's cropping program.
We still do a traditional fallow, plough in the spring and then cultivate up until sowing to get weed control. We're not using artificial fertilisers and things like that, so we're all natural fertilisers and foliar sprays.
One of those fertilisers is a biological plant food known as Convert, which they spray on crops about 6 weeks after sowing.
In field trials, we've got some really good results over the years.
What sort of results?
You always get a yield increase and then a better quality, like a 1% to 1.5% in higher protein. And in a wet year where you get a lot of rain at harvest time, it takes the weather a lot better. It doesn't damage from the weather. Last year in this area there was a lot of frost damage, and with using Convert we don't seem to get the frost damage. We didn't have any frost damage show up in our wheat crops last year.
Neil and Gina Wiseman are more recent converts to organic farming. And free-range eggs are the latest addition to the organic system they started 16 years ago.
We have the sheds and we have the chickens confined to a 500 square metre area around the sheds so that we get the egg production off them. But then later in the day they're let go to range as far as they wish. And then those pens are shifted every day. Building soil is the name of the game, and I see the chickens as the next step in building the soil.
Their 600-hectare irrigated farm mostly grows soybeans and a range of vegetables. They were once typical conventional farmers.
We were pushing out, say, on a 500-acre farm, 1,000 tonne of corn a year and 300 or 400 tonne of wheat, plus a couple of 100 tonne of soya beans, and we were using heaps of fertiliser and what have you to maintain that. It was just, we just ran into problems. Things like rhizotonia and other disease problems, and we were just looking for alternatives.
Key to going organic and not going broke was understanding what natural products they could use to build their soil.
We found rock phosphate, we found we could use lime, we can use gypsum. We switched green manures instead of trying to add nitrogen. We're trying to build the soil up with green manures. So it was quite a transition and quite a mindset change.
After some hard years, they've revitalised some of their worst soil types and are now in the process of buying more land and water. Their 32-year-old son Luke has returned from a career in construction in China to help expand the business. This is a trial crop?
Yes, what we've done last year, we did a very small area, and we decided that yes, we can grow potatoes in the heavier clay. Our carbon levels allowed us to do that, and they come out quite clean, as you can see. So that gave us the hope that yes, we'd be able to get them out and be able to market them. And we went from there, and we've increased to about a hectare and a half here, which is still quite small, but enough to give us a realistic idea of doing this on a commercial scale.
Using rock phosphate, magnesium and other trace elements as well as biological fertilisers makes sense for farms with organic certification. But increasingly, conventional farmers are also using them on their soils and crops.
About 98% of our production goes to conventional farmers, from graziers to broadacre croppers to row croppers to horticulture.
Anton Barton says his company is so confident in the take-up of biological products, it's invested $5 million in a production plant near Narrandera in New South Wales.
It's a very highly evolved brew of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, enzymes and carbohydrates, along with fruiting bodies of beneficial organisms.
BioAg plans to double production in the next 5 years, with more farmers seeking a way to stimulate their soil biology.
Farmers vote with their feet, and our principal objective is to be invited back next year. So in order to be invited back next year, you've got to do a bloody good job this year. And so that's our ongoing commitment to the Australian farm sector.
Drew Weibler runs a conventional 1,600 hectare farm at Cobramilla in New South Wales with his son Jock. They've been using BioAg's inputs for 15 years, alongside their artificial fertilisers and sprays. In some cases, they even mix biologicals with chemicals and deliver them in the same spray.
We seem to be getting reasonable results over the years. I wouldn't say we're saving money. No, we're probably spending money up front, but I think we're getting the results in the improvement in the soil conditions.
At Darlington Point in the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, the Commons family run one of the biggest private cotton growing enterprises. They've also been using the BioAg products for 15 years.
As we go forward into the future, we need to become more and more economically and environmentally aware of what's happening in our soils. As we can't keep pouring on these synthetic fertilisers like we have been in the past. All our inputs are going up. We need to somehow control that and harness what we already have in the soil. And through the use and trial of these microbial products, we've been able to do it.
George Commons has been conducting on-farm trials for the last 4 years, averaging a bale of cotton extra per hectare. BioAg has also been building up its own peer-reviewed scientific evidence.
Well, we've got a heap of trial. We've got independent trial work, replicated trial work from America, where we've been the last couple of years doing work with a research company called AgriCentre International, where we did trials on corn, soybeans and cotton. And we've just committed the third year of those trials. They're independent, replicated, peer-reviewed, statistically significant, and our yield responses have been, by and large, between 20 and 30%. over and above standard practice, and a lot of those replicates we actually had 15% reduction in nitrogen, so we're definitely getting international recognition from that.
For some farmers, like brothers Dennis and Rodney Irvin, using biological fertilisers has boosted production and cut costs. At historic Barellan Station, the brothers have been using the liquid plant food Convert on their 1,800 hectares of pasture and cropping.
Well, on my lucerne, the stock probably eat 80% where it has been. It took me a little while to realise that. I thought there wasn't a big change in the lucerne until I started taking notice of where the stock were eating, and it was all the time they were eating where the fertiliser had been, the liquid fertiliser.
And have you noticed any change in the health of the sheep?
Yeah, I believe the rams have probably are averaging 10 to 15 kilos extra with no changes. So to me, it's obviously they're getting more minerals and nutrients and things from the microorganisms are obviously making a big difference there.
After just 3 years, the Irvins have cut their chemical fertilisers and sprays by 40% and are now hosting independent trials by the Canberra-based research company Australian Soils.
Big difference, isn't it? It's massive, huge.
For me to just realise what's going on, how and why, and well, I wasn't convinced, to be honest with you, for 12 months. Like, I took a lot of convincing and I seen the differences and I just wanted to find out how and why.
The trials showed a huge spike in microbial activity after the first year of application, as well as increases in available trace elements such as phosphorus, nitrogen and magnesium. Convert's Mark Verica says the trial will run for at least 4 years to provide more solid evidence.
Well, it's important because most farmers actually want to see that sort of evidence. You know, I mean, you know, they've got a lot of money tied up in their fertiliser and we understand that. We don't tell them not to use their conventional fertiliser. We tell them to cut it back, and then when they use the Convert, they can cut back on their fertiliser, or their conventional fertiliser, a little bit more each year.
Four years ago, Greengrove was on the market, but since then, Alan Druce has had a change of heart. Soaring organic wheat prices have been a factor, but more so, his desire to protect his farm and continue to sell what he believes is more healthy and nutritious food.
If indeed this farm is growing food that is unbelievably high in these essential nutrients, it seemed to me a backward step to sell it to maybe someone who would go back to farming it conventionally. And I think if you had a conventional farmer come on here, he would grow spectacular crops for a while. But if we have food that is very high in these essential nutrients, I'd like to make it available to any and everyone that's interested.